Have you ever really thought about just how deep that connection between a mother and her child goes? I mean, we talk about the bond after birth all the time, right? But what if I told you that a mother's life, her struggles, her stress, could actually shape her baby's life before they even take their first breath? It's this fascinating, powerful science, and we're going to get right into it.
This quote right here, it just nails it. It's not just about the DNA code we pass down. It's like our life experiences. The tough stuff we go through can literally send messages across generations. So, how on earth is that even possible?
Well, to really wrap our heads around this, we have to go back in time, all the way back to a really haunting puzzle from the American Civil War. And trust me, this isn't just a history lesson. It's a clue to a huge biological truth.
Okay, so picture this. The conditions in these camps were just unimaginable. We're talking extreme starvation, disease, just absolute misery. For the men who survived, that trauma was literally etched into their bodies, and many of them lived shorter, sicker lives because of it. But the story, the echo of that suffering didn't stop with them.
This is where the story gets really weird. Years later, researchers were digging through old records, and they found something that just didn't make sense. Get this. The sons of these prisoners, all of them born after the war was over, had an 11% higher chance of dying than the sons of other soldiers. They'd never been in a camp, they'd never starved, and yet it was like their father's trauma was somehow living inside of them.
So that's the big question, right? How does that even happen? It couldn't have been a change to the actual DNA because the kids born before the war were totally fine. It had to be something else, something that was learned or acquired and then passed on. And that mystery, right there, basically kicked off a whole new field of science.
The answer to that Civil War puzzle is actually hidden in our biology. But to find it, we need to look past the basic genetic code. We need to look at the system that controls the code. You can think of it like your body's software. And that software has a name, epigenetics. So here's the deal. Your DNA, that's the hardware. It almost never changes. But your life, your experiences, they can add these tiny chemical tags on top of your DNA. Now, these tags don't rewrite the code, but they act like little dimmer switches, turning genes on or off, up or down. Things like stress, what you eat, trauma, they can all change the settings.
There's this incredible experiment with mice that makes this crystal clear. Scientists taught father mice to be afraid of the smell of cherry blossoms. Then, their children and even their grandchildren were born already jumpy and nervous around that specific smell, even though they'd never experienced anything bad with it. The father's fear had literally left an epigenetic mark on his sperm, passing that sensitivity right down the line. Now, for a long time, a lot of this research looked at the father's side, but it turns out there's an even more direct, more powerful pathway for this information to be transmitted. And this is where the research is just exploding right now, focusing on that incredibly intimate connection between a mother and her developing baby. Researcher Dr. Catherine Monk has a name for this. She calls it the third pathway, and it's a game-changing idea. It suggests that the womb isn't just a quiet, safe little bubble. It's actually an information superhighway.
You see, we usually think of inheritance in two ways. First, our genes, right? The classic hardware. Second, our upbringing, the parenting we get after we're born. But this third pathway is all about those 9 months before we're born. The mother's entire world, her stress, her emotions, it's all being communicated to the fetus, essentially giving it a forecast of the world it's about to enter.
Now, it is so important to get this next part. Not all stress is bad. Dr. Monk talks about this inverted U. A little bit of stress is good for you. It gets you to the top of the curve, it motivates you, you get things done. But when that stress becomes chronic, constant, and just overwhelming, that's toxic stress. That's when you start sliding down the other side, and that's the kind of stress that can wear down a mother's body and send some really powerful signals to her baby. And toxic stress isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, look at these numbers for prenatal depression. In the general population, it's around 15%. But for women living in poverty, dealing with that daily, relentless stress of not knowing where your next meal is coming from, that rate just skyrockets to 40%. That's the real-world impact of toxic stress, happening during that supercritical window of a baby's development. So if a mother's stress is getting transmitted, how does a baby even hold on to that? I mean, they can't form memories the way we do, can they? Well, it's complicated. Their body remembers.
Yeah, a tiny baby can't tell you a story about what happened. They can't put together that who, what, when, where kind of memory. But that doesn't mean they forget. The experience gets stored in a totally different way. It's a pre-verbal, bodily memory. It's a feeling, a gut reaction, a physical sensation.
Let's break down what's happening in the brain. Trauma can really mess with our memory systems. For a baby, the episodic or story part might not even form properly. But the emotional part, in the amygdala, that's on high alert. It creates feelings of fear, but without any context. And the procedural part, your body's muscle memory, that might store the trauma as a habit, like tensing up all the time. The body remembers what the mind can't put into words yet.
Okay, I know hearing all of this might feel a little heavy, maybe even deterministic, like we're just doomed to repeat the past, but that is not the story here at all. In fact, this is where it gets incredibly hopeful, because this inheritance is not our destiny. We can heal the echo.
The single most powerful antidote that we know of, it's a loving, responsive caregiver. The presence of a safe, nurturing adult can literally rewrite the biological script. It can shield an infant from the long-term effects of all that early stress.
There's actually a scientific name for this, and it's so cool. It's called social buffering. And it's not just a nice thought, it's a real physical process. When a caregiver is calm and connected to their baby, they can physically lower that baby's stress hormones and even block fear signals in the brain's alarm center. That relationship is a biological shield. It's amazing.
And the best part is, we know how to build this resilience. There are proven interventions that really work. Things like child-parent psychotherapy, which focuses on strengthening that parent-child bond, or programs like PrEP that give new moms practical tools. And on a bigger scale, just improving social safety nets, giving new families the support they need. It reduces that toxic stress right at the source.
This quote from Brian Diaz, the neuroscientist who did the cherry blossom experiment, he just says it perfectly. The die is not cast. There's a malleability to the system. Our biology can change. Those epigenetic marks aren't permanent scars. Just like the mice could learn to not be afraid, we can create new, positive experiences that change everything. Healing is absolutely possible.
Which leaves us with this final, really powerful thought. We've seen how the wounds of the past can ripple forward through time. But this new science is telling us something just as profound about the future. That every act of healing, every supportive relationship, every time we break a cycle, it doesn't just help one person right here and now. It could very well be sending a new, much healthier echo into the generations still to come.